Does anyone would like to comment? Dr. Ullman.
There's no doubt that drones have tactical military utility, but any solution in Afghanistan is going to depend on governance and development. Kabul has never ruled the country, and development has been flagrantly and derelictly managed since we've been there. So we can kill a lot of the bad guys, but that's not going to solve the problems. Regarding Pakistan, quite the contrary. One hopes that Pakistan does well, but quite frankly, we have understated for the time being the issues of Pakistan.
Let's take it further from Pakistan also to the other countries where drones have been used. Somalia, Yemen.
Again, tactically it's useful, but Somalia is a failed state. Yemen is a failed state. And unfortunately, as we discovered during Black Hawk Down and the intervention in Mogadishu in 1993, this will go so far. We've got to get to the root causes. There are many, many problems around the world for which we are strapped for resources. And while drones are an expedient, and in some ways I agree are very effective, they are not a palliative to resolve the larger issues. And we have to understand that in that particular context.
Let's take this to another level. Your Excellency, you spoke also about the lack of trust between agencies, between countries, between people. What do you think? I mean, today we are facing also in the region the uprising and the changes in governments. So what has to be done? How can you create a situation where people could trust each other more?
Je pense qu'il est indispensable de faire en sorte qu'on exige plus de transparence dans la gestion de cette question entre les institutions publiques et les autres acteurs impliqués dans la recherche de solutions aux problèmes qui sont posés. Cet aspect de transparence, c'est quoi? C'est que cette suspicion qu'il y a entre les services, notamment sécuritaires, chargés par exemple de veiller à la lutte contre les trafics, qu'on n'ait pas le sentiment qu'il y ait quelquefois des collusions, des connivences entre ces services-là et ces réseaux mafieux. Autrement, on ne vient jamais au bout des problèmes qui sont donc posés. C'est pourquoi il faut donc exiger davantage de transparence dans ce domaine-là, faire en sorte que...
Okay.
Vous ne m'entendez pas?
No, I'm sorry, we don't hear any.
Il n'y a pas de traduction ou c'est parce que...
It's not working? Please, could you give me another one?
Oui. Non, je disais que dans la lutte contre ces menaces qui concernent ces zones-là aujourd'hui, en plus de ce que les États doivent faire, la coopération nécessaire entre eux, il y a aussi la nécessité de veiller à une sorte de transparence dans les relations entre... Vous n'entendez pas?
No, I can hear you. No, I'm following you. Thank you very much.
Qu'il y ait davantage de transparence entre les services publics, en particulier les services de sécurité et précisément les services frontaliers chargés justement de lutter contre les réseaux de trafiquants.
What do you mean by transparency? Maybe you could point a little bit more, could be a bit more specific. What do you mean transparency?
La transparence veut dire simplement que la connivence ou les suspicions de collision qu'il y a entre les services, notamment sécuritaires, et les réseaux mafieux puissent être combattues. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, on considère que si les réseaux de trafiquants, les réseaux terroristes prospèrent davantage, c'est parce qu'ils bénéficient à tout le moins de certaines complicités ou des connivences entre les services chargés de la sécurité dans les zones frontalières, justement, contre leur activité. Et il faut faire en sorte qu'il y ait davantage de transparence, donc qu'il y ait des mécanismes permettant de s'assurer que tout ceci se passe vraiment dans les règles de l'art. Et ceci est vraiment indispensable pour qu'on puisse mettre un terme à ces activités terroristes.
Okay.
Voilà.
Thanks very much, sir. You wanted to comment on this, General? And then I would like to also give you the opportunity to ask some questions. General?
Ce que je voulais dire, et c'est en renforcement de ce qu'a dit Monsieur le ministre du Mali, c'est cette histoire de transparence, ce n'est pas simplement au niveau des services. Le véritable problème aussi, c'est le problème de la transparence entre l'aide internationale et ce qui se passe au niveau de chacun des pays dans lequel est fournie cette aide. Et ça me semble très important, c'est qu'il est nécessaire qu'il y ait une transparence de la façon dont se passe cette aide, qu'il y ait des instances de contrôle, justement, et des instances de contrôle des aides, et puis que le budget lui-même, et là je vais peut-être paraître complètement iconoclaste, mais je pense qu'il n'en est de même actuellement en Europe avec les pays qui ont des problèmes financiers. Pourquoi ne pas imposer à ceux auxquels on donne des aides, justement, la nécessité d'une transparence, la nécessité d'un budget national qui soit transparent et voté?
Thanks very much, Cheryl. We have a couple of questions, I guess. Where's the microphone? You have the microphone? Okay, why don't we start with the lady here in front, and then the gentleman up behind there was raising his arm, and we'll get to all your questions. We'll just thank you. Please introduce yourself and
Zina
and
Bel
your question.
Adawi, membre du Conseil national des droits de l'homme. Lincoln disait, si j'ai à abattre un arbre, j'ai 8 heures pour abattre un arbre, j'en passerai 6 pour aiguiser mes armes. Je me demande, devant des problématiques aussi complexes, devant des risques aussi délocalisés, aussi imbriqués, comment imaginer en faire face, les contrecarrer avec des dispositifs, des institutions internationales qui opèrent avec une mentalité, avec des dispositifs anachroniques, archaïques. Monsieur Ullman parle de la nécessité d'une conférence pour réformer ces institutions. Je pense que sans la volonté des pays qui monopolisent la prise en charge et la gestion de ces organismes, on a beau conférencer, on n'aboutira pas à des problèmes. Donc, le toilettage, la préparation doit venir de ces organismes spécialisés.
So who do you want to answer your comment?
Ça serait difficile de résoudre et de faire face à toutes ces problématiques de sécurité, de terrorisme, avec des institutions qui sont dépassées, qui opèrent avec des outils très anachroniques.
Okay, so this was our question. Please, would you mind just asking questions because you have so many others? I think there is a gentleman back there. Please introduce yourself and ask your question. Ja, we will. Kannst du dich ein bisschen beruhigen? Danke. Kannst du dich ein bisschen beruhigen? Wir machen das schon. There was a gentleman back there. Please introduce yourself, sir, and pose your question.
It's not working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ofer Bornstein, the president of the International Forum for Peace. I would like to know what is the cost of the war in Afghanistan, what is the military budget of Pakistan, and what could have been done with all this investment as an alternative to conflict and to war.
So, who would like to answer? Professor Ellenbogen, and then maybe Tom?
I don't know the actual budget in Afghanistan. The U.S. is spending $38,000 per minute in Iraq. It used to be $50,000 per minute. It's now $38,000 per minute. It works out to about $16 billion a month. And in Afghanistan, Tom, I don't know. You know the budget? I don't.
I think the question,
Tom?
what is Pakistan's budget, wasn't it? Yeah, I have no idea.
So, General.
Is it working? Okay. Pakistan's military budget is $5 billion. $5 billion. Defense budget of Pakistan. Yearly, $5 billion.
Okay, thanks very much. Next question. I think there is someone, a lady here, who has already... Please introduce yourself and quickly ask a question. I see many, many other hands.
Yes.
My name is Alexandra Tretiak-Duval from the OECD. And the question that I would like to ask maybe Mr. Abbas, Dr. Abbas, or one of the other panelists, it doesn't matter, is really, I think one of the major problems we've faced in recent years is a very kind of siloed approach to all the problems. And I think there have been some suggestions, but no one has asked head-on, how can we get people who are concerned with military and security problems to work more with those who are concerned with economic and social problems. I think we started out very well by hearing the percentage of those under 30 in Pakistan. That's an issue that we're facing in a multitude of countries around the world. And I think military and security solutions personally are not the way to go, and we've demonstrated that amply over the last few decades. Thank you.
Who would like to answer this? Please, gentlemen, yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
General Athar, and then maybe the...
Yeah, as I highlighted, that what we have realized that military strategy working within the ambit of a political strategy is in the right direction, because a military success which is not enabling the political environment of bringing peace and development in the area is no military success, because we do not achieve what the people want, and therefore our prime concern always remain wherever we have applied ourselves, the public support is there, and that makes the military victory sustainable in that area, which allows the people to return. Take example of Souad, which is the size of Belgium, where we conducted the operation in the valley, and we had to remove over 2 million people from the valley for the success of military operation. And within 3 months, 4 months, we brought the people back. Over 2 million people were back. And now we have gone through the clear, whole build. We are involved in the building, and we are transferring to the civil agencies. So this is the format. It's a very successful counter-insurgency model. We are trying to apply this in the other areas. The problem is that these timelines do not coincide with the other side. But since, as I said, we are operating in our own area against our own people, we need to carry the public support. We are very mindful of that. Unless and until a military success is sustainable, we are very shy of that.
Thanks very much. Any other comments? And please don't forget, I see many other hands. I would love to give these people the chance to also raise ask their questions, but quickly comments on that.
What we face is that military force may or may not be necessary, but it's certainly not sufficient. And so we have moved to what's called a comprehensive approach, which is the civilian softer side, for which we have been incapable, Europe, the United States, of putting up sufficient resources. That has been the big flaw. So I return to the point raised about political will. We need some big ideas. And unfortunately, politics today have become less about governing and more about campaigning and winning office around the world. And until we get some big ideas that can be mobilized, the pessimism that you reflect, unfortunately, may be very valid. We need big ideas, we need to put them in place, and we need to have the courage and the will to do that. If we're not, as I said earlier, the situation is not necessarily going to get better.
Thanks very much. Professor Mohammedou, and then General.
In addition to what we just said, I think we need more democratization in international decision-making. Quickly commenting on 2 or 3 things that were said. I think you're right, the structure was obsolete, and I think it became even more obsolete post 9/11 because we have a lot of these manifestations of improvisation, essentially. Really, we have all of these contact group, G20, G8 one day. This circumventing of an existing structure, which has all the problems you mentioned, I think is a real issue. I connect this with a point made by the gentleman in the back about sort of what else would have been done with all of this in terms of lost opportunities for the countries, for Afghanistan, for Pakistan. Clearly, there's a larger dimension to this. He's on the phone. He's not listening to my response. It's okay. I'm kidding. But fundamentally, we have lost a lot of opportunities in relation to this. And finally, I think there's an imperative of assessment. We have to say it. The war in Iraq was a failure. And I think the war in Afghanistan is increasingly looking like a mistake as well in terms of its impact and in terms of its results. In 2001, there was a moment of success in dealing immediately with the aftermath of 9/11. But for the past 10 years, it's becoming increasingly a problem for the United States to withdraw because of a lack of vision in terms of what the war is actually pursuing at this stage.
Yes, General quickly, and then the first General, and then you, sir.
Oui, je voudrais répondre de manière très claire à Madame. D'abord, au niveau des forces françaises, hein, la doctrine, c'est on agit au sein de la population, on n'est pas bunkérisé, on ne sort pas uniquement pour les opérations, on agit au sein de la population. Deuxièmement, au niveau international, il existe ce qu'on appelle l'approche globale, qui est un concept qui a été développé depuis 7-5 ans, hein, qui est un concept qui prend en compte tous les aspects civils de la crise, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a les opérations militaires et il y a d'autre part la mise en œuvre de nombreuses actions civiles qui concernent les problèmes d'infrastructure, les problèmes de gouvernance, tous les problèmes qui sont liés au conflit et qui doivent être résolus en même temps. Ceci est en cours d'élaboration, c'est vrai, ça ne marche pas, mais au moins déjà il existe quelque chose.
Thanks very much. Excellency, quickly a comment, and then Professor Ellenbogen, and back to the questions.
Je voudrais apporter des éléments de réponse à une intervention justement qui concernait l'action des organisations internationales dans la recherche justement des solutions qui sont posées. Madame semblait mettre en cause un peu la pertinence, voire même la légitimité de l'intervention de certaines organisations par rapport à les crises qui sont données. Je crois que c'est important, et si l'on se réfère à la Charte des Nations Unies elle-même, qui confère un rôle de premier plan aux organisations régionales, je pense que dans l'examen, dans la gestion des crises, il est bon de se focaliser sur l'intervention des organisations régionales, notamment pour ce qui concerne les crises africaines. Je pense que la pertinence, d'abord, se justifie par ce que ces organisations sous-régionales, par exemple la CEDEAO, disposent de mécanismes adaptés dans la gestion et le règlement des conflits régionaux, locaux notamment. Ça, c'est extrêmement important. Donc, lorsque une crise survient dans une région donnée, qu'on s'assure, qu'on s'appuie d'abord sur ces organisations-là. Ensuite, même en termes de légitimité, c'est extrêmement important parce que très souvent, les gens se posent la question de savoir pourquoi recourir à des acteurs extra-régionaux pour résoudre une crise régionale quand il existe des mécanismes locaux. Je crois que de ce point de vue également, il faut réfléchir à cela, faire en sorte que la communauté internationale puisse jouer un rôle d'accompagnement dans la gestion des crises locales à partir des mécanismes existants.
Thanks very much.
Merci.
Marc, quickly one comment, and then I would like to give the other people the... Yeah? You want to go back? Okay, please. I think we have a couple of more questions, and we have only 15 minutes left. So quickly introduce yourself and please.
So my name is Khalil. You can call me Kali. I'm an international business student. So first of all, I have to thank you for these several analyses, this mix of analysis that made of a hostile context. So the only question that I have is, how isn't the time to settle this bridge of peace with Al-Qaeda or to reconciliate with Al-Qaeda? Maybe we have found that we are facing the fear, the risk with force, with power. But if we just go with Al-Qaeda and sit in the same table, and we have to know what they want and what we want. So, because I'm following the same principle: is prevention is better than cure. So maybe we have to go to the source first, not to go to the result. And you have to go to the the source, and then you can. Because now we're just spending maybe billions of dollars, and we're spending lives. So we have to take care about all this spent. So maybe if it's possible, we have to think about this opportunity. Yeah.
So negotiating with Al-Qaeda.
Yeah,
Please don't mind, I will accept 2 other questions, and then your question will be taken back to the stage, and we will answer all this just for time reasons. The gentleman here was, and then the lady here up in front.
William Pace with the Institute for Global Policy. To come back to a couple of the others, I think the reaction, the war on terror, the declaration of war was a catastrophe. The operationalization of the war has been a catastrophe. The militarization as a route to security has been one of the main lessons of the last 10 years. It does not work. And I only wish that there was more honest recognition that the whole process has made it much worse. For example, in the United States, I think the whole delivery of aid was militarized in this process in the last 10 years. It was bad enough during the Cold War, but it's became much worse. And so there's a huge amount of lessons learned that ought to be applied, but we seem to be so stuck in the momentum.
So what's your question, sir? I'm sorry, I have to...
That is the question.
That's the question. Okay, so that the war doesn't work. One more, and then we'll take this back to stage, and then I'll get back to you. Don't worry, I'll take all the questions. I think the lady here in front was... please introduce yourself and quickly ask your question. Please, it's the lady here in first seat. We'll get back, don't worry, we'll get back. Please.
My name is Tasneem Aslam, Pakistan's ambassador to Morocco. I have one observation and one question. A term AFPAC has been used here repeatedly. There's no such thing as AFPAC. The UN Security Council in 2001 authorized the US to conduct military operations in Afghanistan, and the arena of conflict is Afghanistan. Subsequently, because of the operation, some people ran to Pakistan, they were caught and they went. That's how Osama bin Laden also ended up in Pakistan. But this term is unacceptable to us because Pakistan is not part of the arena of conflict. And we have very clearly told the US, and subsequently this term has been withdrawn. Okay. So I would suggest that in discussions and debates, it should not be used.
All right. Could Secondly, you please ask your question?
My question is to Mr. Sanderson. You said that the use of drone technology will continue to increase because it's cheap. It's not accurate, you know it and I know it, and statistics show that 10 people are killed, 2 may be militants or terrorists, 8 are innocent. Does human life mean nothing to you or your administration?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I have to speed this up because we have other questions, but I would like to take these 3 questions back to, on stage. First of all, negotiating with Al-Qaeda. Well, we've been hearing that there are already also negotiations going on with the Taliban. Why not negotiating with Al-Qaeda? Professor Ellenbogen, maybe you? Would you like to negotiate with Al-Qaeda?
I wouldn't like to, but it's probably necessary. So yes, I mean, and having spent most of my life behind the scenes negotiating things with people that I don't much respect or like, I see no reason why. I mean, unfortunately, anyway, so that's my answer, yes, although I'll be beat up for the answer. As far as operations and military, I mean, I do take this somewhat personally, having served like quite a few people on this stage. I don't think Iraq has been a failure, but it also has been a success, and frankly, I think Iraq now is better than it was. I'll make that statement and let people beat me up for it. The fact that AFPAC doesn't exist, Madam Ambassador, is true, but still, Pakistan is still certainly one of the areas of operations, as you well know. How we define that and what it means, ma'am, I agree. I'm sorry, ma'am?
So the other point was made that actually the war as such, the way it is, it doesn't work. That was actually your comment, that the way the war is going on right now, it doesn't really help, doesn't really work. Mr. Khan, what do you think? Does it help, does it work?
I have clearly stated that in Pakistan's experience, each year violence has increased. More operations, more collateral damage, and I'm talking about our own army, along with the drone attacks, more militancy, more hatred, more anti-Americanism. It is completely counterproductive, as the American ambassador in Pakistan, Ann Patterson, said in WikiLeaks, writing back, which was exposed. She said it's completely counterproductive because those killed are quickly replaced. The hatred means more people join the other side. Collateral damage amongst the Pashtun means people seeking revenge. And to seek revenge, they join the other side. It's not working. In Pakistan, it's not working, and we are looking, if we keep going on this strategy, this is a never-ending war.
So negotiation instead, or?
There is only one solution, political. Either you have a military or a political solution, or as General Athar said, military should be part of a larger political solution. But military by itself is no solution.
General, you also wanted to comment, and please go ahead. And then I would like to give Professor
Oui, je voudrais
Mohammed
juste faire un petit commentaire à ce qu'a dit monsieur. Je suis tout à fait d'accord, la guerre est la chose la plus horrible. Et lorsqu'on en arrive là, c'est parce qu'on ne peut pas faire autrement dans la plupart des cas. Ce n'est pas forcément le cas de celui dont on parle, mais dans la plupart des cas, c'est ce qui se passe. Il faut prendre conscience de cela. Le militaire, ce n'est pas lui qui décide de la guerre. C'est le politique qui décide de la guerre. Et c'est une responsabilité politique qui n'a rien à voir avec la responsabilité des militaires sur le théâtre d'opération. Il faut également prendre conscience de cela.
Thanks very much. Quickly, Professor Mohammedou, and then Tom Sanderson, because you were also...
This is not true.
Yes. Negotiations with Al-Qaeda, two things on that. In fact, I advocated it in 2005, but I think it's too late for this. I think because the organization itself has evolved. I think from the time of the mother Al-Qaeda, Al-Umm, which has a bit of a political discourse in and around all of its demands, I think that it's pretty much a thing of the past. You're faced now with franchises which are far more lethal, less political, and therefore more difficult to engage with, and indeed, in fact, much more regionalized and less centralized on some sort of casus belli that could have been unpacked and engaged with. However, the sort of the subterranean question that you have there is the political aspect, and here I agree with what has been said. In fact, a political solution to the conflict is what we might be moving towards if we're looking for long-term solution. The gentleman there, I fully agree with you. You put your finger on the key problem here, which is success or failure. 10 years of not post 9/11, success or failure. And I think there's two discussions there. There's a discussion that is around the fact that we know that it's not going so well, but let's work with sort of the how to and sort of improve the international grammar of security and work with that without tackling the fundamental problematic aspect, which is that things have gotten worse, in fact, since 9/11 in terms of dealing with all of this. Two big conflicts, Afghanistan and Iraq, which have made the problem much more complex to deal with. And I think now it's mutating to other parts of the world because of that, but also because of the non-state actors themselves. Let's not be naive about it. And I think this is where the crux of the issue is for me.
Tom, please, you would like to answer the comment
Sure,
from the ambassador,
absolutely.
and then back to the question.
The nature of the discussion at that moment was whether we would continue using drones or not, and whether this was a good policy, and specifically on whether it was financially better to do. It's unfair to suggest that I or the administration is not concerned with lives. That was not part of the discussion. We have very limited time to answer our questions here, so we can't elaborate beyond that. That was the only nature of the discussion at the moment, was that it was less expensive than doing counterinsurgency and having boots on the ground. That's it.
Thanks
of
very
course,
much.
we're all concerned about that.